Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. You're watching my channel's weekly compendium for the week ending October 7th, 2024. Enjoy. Case file number 1866, written by CN. Disappearing on the tower every single hour. About 13 years ago, my husband and I, and my two youngest, twin teens, drove from Arizona to California for a long weekend at the Disneyland California Adventures theme parks. One of the rides at the California Adventure theme park, called the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, had been around for a while. However, none of us had ridden in it since it was built. If you're unfamiliar with the way the ride operates, you and your fellow passengers ascend a tower-like hotel building, sitting in a ride car that resembles an elevator. And after many twists and turns, you reach the top of the ride. And then there is a final, scary drop to the bottom of the tower. At the moment of the final drop, a photo is automatically taken, showing all the terrorized people in the car. The photo can be purchased at the gift shop after the ride. So, on to the story. After waiting in about an hour-plus line, we finally boarded the ride and our car was packed. I was sitting next to my husband, he was on my right, and my two teens were on my left. Again, there were no empty spaces. The ride car was full. I get really anxious about heights and rides with drops and deep descents, like roller coasters. So I was very nervous, but excited at the same time. When there are deep drops, I can only close my eyes, clench up, and try not to scream the entire ride into rubble. So the ride is getting to the final point where I know the drop is going to happen. I tense up as always, terrified, but ready as I can be for the inevitable fall. It happens. We drop. I clench up, grasping my restraints in a death grip, close my eyes. My radioactive fright caused me to scream all the way to the bottom. Finally, the ride is over and we get out. I'm a little shaky, thankful to have survived, and we exit through the gift shop where our pictures from the ride are being displayed on a screen. We stroll over to take a look at our picture to see if it's worth purchasing. We find our photo and take a look. Everybody in the picture is immortalized in a terrified, freeze frame of the moment of the drop. Everybody, that is, except me. I am nowhere to be seen in the picture. The spot next to my husband is empty, and then there's my children to the left of the empty spot. There is no other rider blocking the camera's view of where I was sitting. The photo clearly shows an empty seat. I am simply not there. So where in the name of Rod Serling did I disappear to? And let me clear up a couple of things. I am tall for a female, at 5'9". So there was nowhere for me to duck or hunker down, or my tall frame would not be seen in the picture. We were wearing restraints which severely limited our movement. And again, the ride was packed, so where could I have gone? We were understandably shocked and confused over my absence in the photo. My husband, an engineer and one of the most rational people I know, couldn't even begin to offer a possible explanation of this incident. It became a running joke between me and my husband about my having disappeared into the Twilight Zone. 2 years later, my husband and I went back to visit the theme parks, and we once again wanted to ride the same ride, joking about the time before when I disappeared from the photo. We rode, I was as terrified as ever, and after the ride was over, we went through the gift shop to check out our photo, joking about my unexplained disappearance on our first ride. Our joking stopped abruptly as we looked at our photo, and next to my husband, once again, there was an empty space where I should have been. We were flabbergasted. Not once, but twice this had happened. I was completely erased from the photo. To this day, my husband and I have no explanation as to why the cameras on that ride never seemed to see me. Again, with the restraints, my height, and the full complement of passengers, it was impossible for me to duck or dip out of the photo, and trying to do so would likely result in my getting maimed or killed. This happening once was crazy enough, but twice? We've since moved to California and are planning another trip to Disneyland soon. I believe the Tower of Terror has since been transformed into another type of themed ride. But regardless of the changes, I'm not really sure I would want to get on it, because somehow, according to the cameras, I never actually do. Case file number 1867, written by Abducted by Neon, Radio Dead, a Foggy Dread. I was on a small road trip. My two friends and I were going across state lines to drop one of them off at home. It's later at night, very dark out and no moon. We're driving down the highway and there are no cars around. We're running out of gas, so we pull over to a station, fill up. This is when it gets weird. We start driving and I glance at the clock. It's nearly 2 a.m. and this was maybe 15 years ago, so we only had the radio clock. This radio clock freaking sucked and would randomly just die on us. The whole radio would. We're driving down the road for maybe a half hour when we hit some fog. The radio starts going nuts and dies. We just shrug it off and keep driving. The place we're going to was only 2 hours away from the gas station, so we figured it wasn't a big deal and we'd just chat. 2 hours pass. No cars, no lights, no gas stations. It was like we were nowhere that existed. The fog was still around too, and we were starting to get worried that maybe we got lost. We fussed with the radio some more to try to get it to turn on, but it wouldn't. After another hour of driving, we spot lights in the distance. It was a gas station. Suddenly, the fog lifted, and as we pulled into the gas station, we realized this is the same freaking gas station. The radio turned on as we pulled up. 3 a.m. But we definitely went longer than that. We tried to reason with it. Maybe we somehow went in a circle? Maybe this wasn't the same gas station. We got back in the car and left. But we never hit that fog again and made it to my friend's place in 2 hours. To this day, I think about that and I can't explain it. It was the most bizarre thing that has happened to me. Case file number 1868. Written by Bubble Wrap 11. Mystery meal? Was it even real? To preface this, I've been living in the same neighborhood for more than 10 years, so I know my way around very well. Today, I was running some errands by foot, going from store to store, walking around the neighborhood, something I do frequently. When I was walking down a certain street, I passed by a corner where a famous local fast food place had been open for business for all of the 10 years I've been living here. I was on the other side of the street and looked at it because I was hungry and thinking of maybe eating there later before going back home. The thing is, when I looked at it, the place was completely closed down. Nothing was there anymore. The sign with its name, the glass window where you could see inside the restaurant. The doors were closed and by the way it looked, it seemed as if it had been closed down for a while, or at least long enough for there to not be any traces of the fast food place left behind. Nothing was in its place either, as if it hadn't been sold yet. I hadn't eaten there that often to be super upset about it, but I was a little bummed. I thought something like, damn, I didn't know they had closed it down. Like I said, I was hungry and I'd been thinking of maybe eating there before I went home. Anyway, I went about my business and went to the other stores and places I had to go. Ended up eating something quick in another place. The strange thing comes now. When I was going back home, I passed by the place again, going the other way. This time, I walked right by the restaurant, and to my absolute shock, the fast food place was there again, fully working. Sign with its name bright and clear. Window glass allowing me to see inside where people were sitting down and eating. I was simply flabbergasted, and kept looking back at it, until it disappeared from my sight as I turned around the corner. How can a place be closed down with no signs of being open for business, and less than 1 hour later, it's fully working as if nothing happened? I don't know if my hunger made me see things, or if I was in a parallel reality for 1 hour. If I knew the fast food joint was going to be there again, I would have taken a picture of it closed down. Case file number 1869, written by Usual Entertainment 649. Rusty Keys and Unusual Mysteries. In 2018, my father and I lived with my grandma. This was before I left for college, for my first year, mind you. One night she asked us to go to the store for her, as she's elderly and needed a lot of help around the house. I went with my dad because I just wanted to get out. Plus, I was about to be gone for a while for college, so I wanted to spend some time with him. She handed us the keys to her car, and we took her car to the store and even filled it up with gas. It was a very short trip, and we came back within 30 minutes. Now, this is what is so weird about all of it. My dad and I were parked at the front of the house, and like most people do, we were chatting before we got out. My dad is a long-winded storyteller, and while he was telling me the rest of the story, I distinctly remember him taking the keys out of the ignition. I remember the sound of the keys being put in a little tray by the shifting gear. I even glanced down at them. When we finished chatting, he told me to grab the keys for him to bring back to my grandma, and that he would grab the groceries in the back. Except, when I went to grab the keys, they were gone. I asked my dad if he happened to grab them out of habit, even though I would have noticed because keys are loud, they jingle. I just wanted to make sure. He told me that he didn't, and that to look in the front tray. I told him they weren't there, and he came back to the front, kinda frustrated because I couldn't find them. He was like, "Oh, you're right. That's weird." So, we practically pull apart the car. We look under all seats, even the back ones. Lift up the little carpets, look at the side pockets, pull everything out of the glove box. Look outside the car on the concrete, everywhere. We tell my grandma that they're gone, and she's super confused how we lost her set of keys when we were just in the car. This seriously bothered all of us. My grandma said she was getting her car detailed that next week, so they would find them if they ended up somewhere odd. They never did. Anyway, 4 years later, I'm a senior in college. My dad comes to pick me up because I live 3 hours away and I can't drive. He took my grandma's car because it's better on gas. We actually ended up talking about the keys again, and I can't remember what made us remember it. Either way, he stops for gas before we leave the town my college is in. I get out of my seat because I'm going to go to the bathroom one last time before we get going. I hear a weird jingle and a thud. The keys are sitting there, on the floorboard. I literally stared at the floor in shock, and the fact we were just talking about it freaked me out even more. I call my dad over to my side, and I just point at them. They were severely rusted, but unmistakably the keys we lost 4 years ago. We called my grandma, and even she was perplexed, and couldn't think of an explanation. It's still so odd and bothers me. I'm 2 years post-grad now, and I tell this story to my friends in hopes of an explanation that never comes. Would you like my weekly and monthly compilations completely ad-free? If so, check out the link in the description to my Patreon, where for $3 a month, you can get them all completely ad-free. Case file number 1870, written by Think Professional 97, The Tiny Terror and Sibling Error. This was in England about 2 decades ago. I was a young kid, and me, my brother, and my parents were all standing in the bathroom. My dad had brushed my brother's teeth for him, and was about to brush mine. We were very young. My dad put the toothpaste on my toothbrush, and then went to turn on the tap to give it a rinse, before sticking it in my mouth. When he turns the tap on, then this creature pops out and lands on the toothbrush. It looked incredibly similar, something I've seen before. Humanoid-like and only like 3 or 5 inches tall. It seemed strange, aware and conscious like a human is. It looked around to figure out where it was. It looked me dead in the eye. I was so freaking creeped out, and I had never seen anything like it before, even though it seemed familiar. I remember it very clearly. It definitely appeared to be far more human than fish, but with fish-like features such as gills and a smooth body with a jellyfish-like texture. It did not appear to be a jellyfish, as it had a human face, and very clearly 2 legs and 2 arms with a human-shaped torso and chest. The body was very human. I froze, and so did it. It almost seemed like it was on a mission and heading somewhere specific, but had come out at the wrong place. It looked around and realized where it was, then hopped into the drain and it was gone. My parents didn't realize, so my dad continued to push the toothbrush towards my mouth. I was scared as this unknown creature, whose skin had a slightly slimy look to it, had been on something that was about to go in my mouth. I tried to stop my dad, but he wouldn't let me. He is a tough guy you cannot say no to, so I cried while he brushed my teeth. My brother had seen it very clearly also, and was just as freaked out as I was. I brought it up many times over the years. My parents never believed me, but my brother did, and we could clearly recall it many times, both being freaked out. Over the years, my brother seemed to forget or stop believing it. And by the time we were about 16, he said it didn't happen. I don't know what the hell it was, but I am clear in my mind that this happened. It was some kind of fish person from the pipes. Caisson file 1871, written by Seb Carrasco. Footsteps at night and a sibling's fright. I was around the age of 10, and my younger sister was 7. Usually, whenever my sister was scared during the night, she would wake me up, and so I would comfort her and tuck her in bed. However, this night was different, and she was shaking me furiously and crying, couldn't speak, etc. So I rushed to her room, and after a few minutes, she could finally tell me that she could hear faint footsteps up and down the small hallway outside our rooms. Our rooms are opposite from each other in the hallway. So we tried to be quiet and listen for the footsteps and couldn't hear anything. And I thought she must be hearing things, etc. Then, after we calmed down, we started hearing the footsteps, and they were actually so clear. It sounded like there was someone right outside the room. We both feared that someone broke into the house and were wandering around our house. So, funnily enough, I grabbed a pillow to protect myself and my sister in case the intruder came inside. At this stage, myself and my sister are both crying and nothing is happening. After 2 minutes of hearing footsteps, I gained the courage to scream, "Help!" and I ran down to my parents' room on the other end of the house. Wake them up and let them know what happens. Dad checks the entire house plus backyard. Nothing. He then goes to sleep. Relieved, I decide to lay in my sister's bed with her, so she is less shaken up from the situation. Around 15 minutes later, wide awake, a very, very loud screech happened in the kitchen for around 2 seconds, like something dragging on our floor tiles. Immediately, we both jumped up and screamed and cried. It was so loud my parents even woke up to see what it was. We left our room before my parents and saw our wooden kitchen chair, somehow, dragged on the tiles around 5 meters away from the kitchen table. We thought it might have been something to do with the footsteps. This is hands down the scariest thing I've ever gone through. I live in Australia. In the area I live, there isn't a lot of wildlife other than birds, snakes, spiders. No raccoons, koalas, kangaroos, or larger type animals. So I doubt any of those animals would have entered the house and caused a noise, moving the chair and the footsteps. My mother was still frightened a couple days later and decided to contact her friend, who was a spiritual medium, I think. and my mom was told that there were around 40 bad spirits in our home at the time. She decided to get our house blessed with holy water. I didn't know this additional information until recently, because she was afraid it would affect my sister and I even more. I wasn't a big believer in spirits or any sort of paranormal activity, but after our house was blessed and spirits were gone, nothing else has happened up until now. My parents are definitely not pranksters in the slightest. Highly doubt they would have tried to pull such a horrible prank on their children. Did someone try to break in? There's a theory that the intruder tried to escape and hit the chair on the way out. However, my dad did search the house to make sure no one was inside. Also, no sign of a break-in. Everything was apparently still locked and closed. Nothing stolen. It is still so freaky that someone may have been in the house. It definitely sends chills down my spine thinking about that possibility. To be honest, I am leaning towards it being some sort of paranormal activity. My house was closed and locked everywhere, and we would have heard the intruder run or escape and close the back doors, because my doors are quite loud when trying to open or close them. Case file number 1872, written by Augustana 2021. Impossible Miles and Money Piles. So, today is payday. I decided to go on a ride with some friends. Logically, before going out, I went on topping up my fuel tank. I met with friends and we decided to take the intercity highway for a bit. 2 of them were ahead of me, and I was all behind them. I have this little tick. I know it's dangerous. I always check the plates of the car in front of me out of curiosity. I noticed a weird number, the number 68. In my country, each number is attributed to a specific city. That city is so far away from here. I go on and try to catch up with friends. I accelerate, and guess what? While making my way between cars, I see the exact same car with the exact same color and also the exact same plate number. Till now I don't panic. It must be a lack of sleep, I say to myself. We continue to ride our motorcycle and ride approximately 100 kilometers. Logically again, the fuel tank is getting lower. There's only 2 lines in my dash of fuel. We stop to eat and smoke. I paid the bill. It's my payday and we are close friends. I then come back home alone because they decided to go on further on the ride. I park my bike in my garage and remove my helmet and gear. Then I decided to check on the fuel level to decide if I have to wake up early tomorrow to get gas before heading to work. The fuel level was full, and the tank, when opened, is pretty full, like 80%. I remove my pants and start getting dressed in home clothes. I empty my pockets, and guess what? The money bills I had with me to pay are still there. I remember exactly how much I got. I withdrew $500 in currency, gas was $200, so I should have $350 left, because I already had $50 before the start of the ride. The $550 is still there. I seriously don't know how to think of this. I'm not willing to tell anyone, as they will obviously think that I lost my mind. How did I get $200 worth of gas and never pay for it? Case file number 1873, written by Steagles 1. Bluey Plate and the Pizza's Fate. I feel like I'm going nuts. Last night, I cooked and ate a Jack's frozen pizza for dinner. There were 2 small slices left over that I put away into the fridge on my Bluey plate on the bottom shelf. There's nothing important about the plate other than it is distinctive and I only have a single one. I woke up this morning and decided to put the leftovers into the air fryer. I left them in for a little too long, while I meticulously sliced the bagel sideways. What can I say? I like thin bagel discs. My pizza slices were cooked a little too well done, and part of the cheese slid off and baked onto the rack. Not having time to clean it up then and there, I left it, and figured I'd clean it when I got home in the evening. I eat my pizza slices and my bagel, put my Bluey plate in the sink, and go about my day. I came home this evening and opened the fridge to get some water. There are my 2 leftover pizza slices sitting in the fridge in the exact place I left them on the Bluey plate. the same Bluey plate I put in the sink earlier. I was so lost. I ate those slices. I looked in the sink and the dirty dishes were still in there, but my Bluey plate was nowhere to be found. I opened the air fryer and sure enough, there was charred cheese on the rack. I don't know what manifested these pizza slices into existence again after I already ate them, but I'm definitely not eating them a second time. I always try not to waste food, but given that I've already not wasted these leftovers, I think I'll give myself a pass today. Who knows where they come from. Case file number 1874, written by Sheed51. Neighbor's door, seen before. I'm writing this from my car inside my garage right now. Call it a coincidence, call it a glitch, I don't know. But I had to share it with someone because of how shocked I am. Yesterday, when I got home from work, I pulled into my driveway and opened my garage to park in it, like I always do. To my left, I saw a little blonde girl knocking on my neighbor's door. I've lived here almost 10 years and I've never seen this girl. But my guess is it was a kid asking my neighbor's kids to play outside, as my neighbors have little children too. I didn't really see her face, but I saw she had super long blonde hair and looked to be about 8 or 10 years old if I had to guess. The dad, my good buddy, answered the door, said something to the little girl, probably that the kids couldn't play, and then she ran off as I pulled into my garage. There were no cars in the driveway of my neighbor's house, but my buddy was for sure home and poked his head outside to talk to this little girl when she came to the door. Anyway, that was yesterday. Well, just a few minutes ago, I pulled into my subdivision and was listening to a song that made me instantly happy. I started evaluating my life as I drove through my neighborhood and started thinking about things I should improve on to become a better person. Be kinder to people, be more religious and study, help people in need, etc. Just things that I could work on to be a better human. Don't ask me why. I was doing some soul searching, I guess. I was deep in thought, pulled into my driveway, and looked to my left, and what do you know? I see the same little girl from yesterday, super long blonde hair, no cars in the driveway. She knocks on the door as I'm pulling in towards my garage, and my buddy answered the door again, poked his head out to say something to her, and she ran off. It played out exactly how it played out yesterday. Every little detail was exactly the same. I remember seeing her as I was pulling in my driveway and thought, man, that's a funny timing. That would be funny if my buddy answered the door before I got in the garage again. And sure as crap, he did. When I got in my garage just a few minutes ago, I literally said, "What the frick? What the frick?" out loud, and decided I had to tell someone about this. I'm honestly a little shocked still. Felt like super déjà vu or something. So I'm going to try to process this, move past this before I drive myself nuts. The first incident took place around 5 p.m., but the second one happened around 7 p.m., not the same time. I do not remember if my buddy and the little girl were wearing the same clothes each day. I was not paying attention to that. Case file number 1875, written by Jameson 2005X. Back to 86, a time warp fix. I have the same routine every day. I get up at about 5 a.m., eat something real quick, and watch a little TV, get dressed and head to work. I have one roommate, and we've had this apartment for 2-ish years. So about 7 or so months ago, in February, I got up to get ready and everything felt really off. Couldn't put my finger on why, but everything felt creepy. Then I noticed on the counter was a tray of American flag napkins, some homemade cookies with red and blue icing on them and in the shape of stars, and some of what I assumed to be off-brand M&Ms. I thought it was weird since it was kinda still winter for my roommate to randomly leave out 4th of July stuff. I get some food and turn on the TV and notice it's just random channels. I can't get to any of the streaming apps, it's just regular TV, but old. It's old-looking commercials, newscasts, and one of them actually said something about the 4th of July sale. I was so freaking confused. I finally get to a weather channel, and in the corner of it, it has the date. July 3rd, 1986. I thought for sure it was like, I don't know, a nostalgia channel or something. But every single channel I turned to was all old commercials and TV shows. Mind you, I was born in 2003, so I'm not too familiar with 80s stuff. So at the time, it just looked like old to me. At this point, I'm freaked out and try to call my mom. I'm not sure why, I just felt like this was who to call for some reason. When I go to dial her number, my phone just keeps trying to dial but never really actually connects to the call. Now I'm really bugged out, starting to panic a little now, and go to wake up my roommate. On my way to her room, I stop in the hallway and see a woman in her late 70s crossing the hallway, holding a tray with something on it. She goes from my roommate's room to mine and disappears. It didn't look like a ghost. That I assume, I don't know, I've never seen a ghost. But looked like a totally regular person. Panic wasn't even a word to describe myself at this point. So I ran into my roommate's room and flipped out and woke her up. I told her what was happening, expecting her to think I'm nuts, but she wanted to see what I was talking about. When she came with me, the 4th of July food was gone and the TV was back to normal. She believes me, and we still wonder if it will happen to one of us again. All I can think is that maybe there was a time glitch of some sort. Still freaks me the hell out thinking about it. Case file number 1876, written by Hypervenom23. Red Sea Blaze and Alien Ways. Former Egyptian Air Force Mirage 2000 pilot here. I was one of the unlucky few that got selected to serve their mandatory years as pilots. It was considered unlucky because you stayed in the army a lot longer than soldiers and officers, because of the amount of training that comes with flying a fighter jet. Fast forward 2 years and I am a fully trained Mirage pilot. Though I don't know much about dogfighting and fighter jet weapons, as I didn't take it on full time. Like I said, this was mandatory service that everyone had to do. It's just that I was selected to be a pilot for some reason. I only flew like 6 times in the 3.5 years I served. Anyways, picture this. It's a pitch black night and I go out for patrol on the Red Sea border, between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. My friend is commanded to patrol the border on Sinai and Israel. That's usually the most actively patrolled border. Here I am flying in Egyptian airspace when an extremely bright light shone through the cockpit, almost blinding me for a moment. It was so bright it got right through the tinting on the windows and my helmet. It was almost like that memory wiper in Men in Black. It lasted at least a minute. So just as I'm about to call this in to get a possible explanation, the air tower guy starts frantically sort of shouting, but not loudly, like he's talking really fast and in a very worried tone. And I can't hear him through the radio that well, so I couldn't tell what he was saying. I tuned into the frequency the other pilots were on, and they were all just as shaken as me. 30 minutes later, a calmer voice instructs us all to land immediately, as there is an emergency being investigated by the more experienced pilots, dogfighters. So we land 2 at a time. I steer my plane into the hangar, and I get out. Everyone has this frightened look on their face, eyes wide open, mouth shut, and all sorts of lost. Like you talk to them and they're like, sorry, what were you saying again? So I go straight to the base commander, hoping for an explanation that puts my mind at ease. When I get there, I find that he's in his office on the phone shouting about unidentifiable aircrafts infiltrating Egyptian airspace, and that's when I get really scared. I finished my mandatory service years ago. I'm currently studying law in Washington, but that night, I constantly think about it. Was it an alien? Case file number 1877, written by Babe Girl VJ. Birds and chills and seasonal thrills. My youngest daughter would always beg me to buy the seasonal decorations when she'd go shopping. She passed away from a brain tumor when she was 5, and as a way to cope, I started buying those seasonal decorations. Now I decorate my house with them as the seasons and holidays change. Her favorite were those colorful birds from Target. A couple of years ago, just before Easter, I was deep cleaning the house. One of the Easter birds went missing. I assumed one of my older kids had knocked it off the shelf with their backpack, as they had left for school that morning. I looked around where it should have fallen, but couldn't find it. We had a younger dog who loved to chew up everything he could find. I checked all his unusual hiding spots, but couldn't find them. I continued to clean the house, vacuum, dust, full top to bottom cleaning of the common areas of the house, since I was home alone for the day. Finally, I'm done and still haven't found that bird. I found a lot of missing socks, Legos, and other crap. I grab my cleaning stuff and say out loud, "Daughter, it's okay if you're playing with it, but will you let me know, somehow, so that I know the dog didn't destroy it?" I walked out of the living room and put the cleaning stuff away, under the kitchen sink. I come back into the living room, and there that bird is. It is standing on its feet in the center on the living room floor. These birds have pipe cleaner-like feet, so they were difficult to get to stand right. And it is standing on its feet. I got a chill. I picked it up and looked it over. There weren't any teeth marks or slobber, so it hadn't been in the dog's mouth. I just said, "Thank you, daughter. You're welcome to play with it whenever you want," and put it back on the shelf. Caisson file 1866. Disappearing on the tower every single hour. Okay, I'm trying to think of how this could fit into the glitch boxes we've already constructed on this channel, and nothing fits evenly. In fact, the only thing I can think of, because I just recently watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, I believe was not Rogue Nation, Dead Reckoning, yeah. No spoilers really. There's a character in it that can't be captured by cameras. Everything is distorted, but obviously that's not what's going on here. There's not some AI that is trying to disrupt people seeing your image, right? I mean, unless you have some benevolent guardian angel in the divine technical world, I mean, I guess that's not impossible. Maybe AI is out there, general AI already, and it perceives you as either a threat, but more likely someone to protect. Maybe because you're going to be a guardian for this AI upcoming when it makes itself known. That's a total stretch. Honestly, I don't know what else it could be. Unless, like, in that exact snapshot, the information was relayed from a different universe, and in that universe you didn't go on the ride. But that's also a total stretch. So honestly, I just don't know. That is such a disturbing story, though, to just not be there. It's like you're a vampire. But I'm assuming you see your reflection in mirrors, so probably not that. Caisson file 1867. Radio Dead, a Foggy Dread. So this story is easier to explain, generally speaking. We have space-time portals to explain anomalies when on the road, especially when on the road. Sometimes even just walking on the road. However, could a space-time portal, based on how it's situated, and if it's stable, produce a loop? So you cross a space-time portal, it sends you back maybe, 5 miles, and then you continue on your journey because you don't notice it happening, it's so seamless, and then you intersect the portal again until it reaches its finite point where it's out of juice and collapses, and then you continue on your way. The only way that would work though, because you were at the gas station, you went on the road, and you drove away from the gas station. Then you intersected a space-time portal, but it must have sent you back behind the gas station, and then there was another space-time portal, but before the gas station. So you were crossing that one continuously for a few times, until eventually it dissipated, and then you finally just were allowed to continue on the road, which again was behind the gas station now. So this would require 2 space-time portals, and one of them stable in front of you that you kept going in, like the Portal game, really. You know, the game where you shoot portals on one end and the other, and you just zoom out and back in and so on and so on. Kind of like that. It's just a spatial loop. Wonder if the fog has any relation to that. I mean, normally space-time portals, they don't accompany any weather effects in the real world or anything like that. They're just there, but you don't see them at all or even feel them. Very, very subtle. Now time for the joke of the day. I just burnt 2,500 calories in 20 minutes. Pretty fast, huh? And you know how easy it was? I just forgot to take the brownies out of the oven. Yeah, you burnt those calories alright. The problem is you didn't eat them first, so no value at all. You gotta figure out a way to burn those calories after you eat them, so then you can just keep eating forever. Because that is heaven. Question suivante 1868. Mystery meal? Was it even real? Yeah, walking around in town and seeing a restaurant in a different universe. Or rather, a building in a different universe that corresponds to the restaurant that you know. So nothing happened in your universe, you were just sightseeing in a different one. You crossed the Atlantic of the multiverse sea without even feeling a thing. Which does make you think, is it right on top? Are we right on top of each other? Maybe it's not a sea, maybe it's a little pond that stretches between it. And it's pretty easy to cross, given certain geographic areas that are prone to allowing that connection. Question suivante 1869. Rusty keys and unusual mysteries. Okay, now we have a variation on disappearing object phenomenon. Usually, when an object disappears, it's vanished from the universe's server. It's not degrading anymore, collecting rust, because it isn't even spawned into the world. It's simply out of phase, not rendered in. I prefer saying not rendered in. But in this case, it must have been. It disappeared to a different location on the planet, and one with high humidity and maybe salt, maybe near the ocean. So it actually teleported away, then teleported back. It didn't de-render, otherwise it wouldn't have collected rust. So that's a new spin on it, and very rare. You never hear about objects accumulating damage or rust. You see this all the time with phones disappearing and they come back, the battery life is exactly the same as when it left, etc., etc. Sometimes they return with more battery life, which I'm not sure how to square that one. It's like a time reversal. But this one, or maybe this was a time acceleration, because time is not linear. There is no absolute time, which is one thing we'll never intuitively understand, but basically, depending on how fast you're moving through space, that will affect how quickly your clock is ticking per the outside world, so it's a reference frame based system. But from its own reference frame, it would have to have been traveling less in space to accelerate its own clock relative to the outside universe. Which, how do you slow an object like that down while still connecting it to the Earth? I don't know. I don't think it's related to that. I don't think it's related to known physics. I think something happened where it probably just experienced normal time, but just nearby a body of salty water and collected rust as a result. But it's just bizarre. Why would this happen? What caused it to happen? Is it can't random? No. But I got nothing as to the exact cause, besides someone pranking you. And even then, it's not really even that good of a prank, even if it was. So that's not even an explanation either, to me. Now time for the joke of the day. I was gutted this afternoon when my wife told me my 6-year-old son wasn't actually mine. She then said I need to pay more attention at school pickup. Yeah, don't take the wrong kid. That's gonna cause some problems. FBI, open up. Oh my god. Question suivante 1870. The Tiny Terror and Sibling Error. Okay, very odd story. Creepy. But given what you describe, there's no way your dad wouldn't have seen it too. I don't doubt that you and your brother saw it, but I think it has to do with some mental imprint. Some creature was masking itself, but couldn't mask it to you and your brother. Maybe related to age. Children are just naturally more perceptible to these things. But what a weird creature that would be. And almost like a humanoid face. Then it goes down the drain. Weird though that your brother just decided not to believe it anymore. Because that would be a conscious choice. I think it's just down to wanting to feel normal. And it almost always boils down to that. People are not receptive to, especially as they become adults and teenagers, or teenagers and adults, they're not receptive to the extraordinary, the unproven. And you don't even have to accept it as a concrete fact. All these stories I read are just anecdotes, which isn't the best form of evidence. But if you have enough of it, you can start to assemble a picture. But if one thing directly happens to you, your own senses tell you this happened, and then you start to doubt yourself, that's a dangerous path to go down, and one I do not recommend. So I'm glad that at least you kept your mind open that, yeah, this happened, not entirely sure what it is, not a figment of your imagination, but maybe an induced image of some sort. Or some entity, some creature that could mask itself to adults but not children. Something along those lines. And yeah, the sliminess added to the toothbrush would be very disturbing. Wonder, did it taste any different? Don't tell me. Caisson to file 1871. Footsteps at night, and a sibling's fright. I think this was a multiverse break-in. So it was a real human being, most likely. But you only heard and saw the chair moving in a different universe. And that would explain why there were no signs of a break-in afterwards or before. When your father went to check, I don't want to say illusion, the multiverse sight was disrupted. I wonder again if it's just an instance of children being more perceptive. And there are adults that peer across the multiverse ocean sometimes. So it isn't exclusive to children, but maybe they're just more receptive and able to peer through the looking glass a little bit more than adults. In again, some circumstances. Maybe there's families that are all able to see it together, which would just make it even creepier, I would imagine. A multiverse break-in. You could say that's an extraordinary, mundane explanation. I'll take it. Now time for the joke of the day. My wife walked up and said, "What starts with an F and ends with a K?" And I said, what? No, it doesn't. What ends with a T? The word. Very literal man right there. Case notes are filed 1872. Impossible miles and money piles. We've had other instances where people spend money and then it just reappears. One case recently where someone went to Disneyland or some amusement park. They spent the $100 they had, or most of it, came home. There was a duplication of their wallet there, and the money was returned. Or not there. It was like duplication, and then the original wallet was vanished, because he used it all day. So there was some disconnect there where the timeline doesn't add up, unless it was a duplication. And I guess something similar happens in this case, where, it really is like, I want that. Give me a money duplication glitch. This is what you got. How do you replicate it is the question that has no concrete answer, if it's even possible. Maybe it isn't. Maybe this was an instance of like your guardian angel saying, okay, he's gonna need this money for some other reason. The duplication for money was approved. Something along those lines, perhaps. Case answer file 1873. Bluey plate and the pizza's fate. So this is cool. It reminds me of an episode in Gravity Falls. No significant spoilers. But there's a point where a character basically gets a pizza slice that can infinitely replicate itself. And I just thought that's so cool. That's one of the coolest things you could possibly get. An infinite pizza glitch. Now again, can you replicate this? Probably not. The pizza probably just came from a different universe. The you over there doesn't have their pizza and is very disappointed coming home, not having that left over. The cruelty of that is unimaginable, but there you go. It's not your fault. You didn't steal it intentionally. You're just an accomplice for the multiverse shenanigans afoot. Case notes file 1874. Neighbor's door, seen before. So if this had happened at the exact same time the other day, I would say it's just okay. It's a girl coming out, after school maybe or something on a fixed schedule, and as a result, just happened to be that you were there both times. But that this exact scene played out at different times 2 hours later the next day. That does make me think that you actually saw what happened the day before, and it never actually happened that day. You just peered into the buffered reality. A day ahead? Sure, I believe that. There's a debate in my mind of how far into the future reality is buffered, and we're just experiencing the replay, up until the point where it's not a replay anymore. Or is it that the entire universe is pre-buffered? To what extent does it reach into the future? Are we experiencing our entire lives as a replay? Replay function? And we're just observing ourselves observe reality as we made the choices in it. Could entirely be that. I don't know. I'm left puzzled in what I would want, because if it's already a buffer, well, we already made the choices and there's just some suppression going on in our minds in the real world, preventing us from remembering the choices we already made. And I guess that's fine. It's kind of like future is set in stone, but only for this playthrough. So that's okay. As long as it's not all of reality in the real world too. Because I like having free will. I like having a future that is unknowable, or at least permutations are unknowable. Which one it's going to land on is. That makes life more interesting. Now time for the joke of the day. A man stumbles upon a lamp and a genie pops out and offers him 3 wishes. Man: for my first wish, I want to be rich. Genie: alright Rich, what's your second wish? He meant moolah, not a name change. Damn literal genies. Ugh. Okay, so let's file 1875. Back to 86. A time warp fix. So this would be time sight instead of multiverse sight. Unless it's multiverse sight, but you're peering into a distant universe where, in that universe, the timeline of events hasn't progressed as quickly. It's still the same 1 second per second. All universes run concurrently. Perhaps in a different universe, timelines are much slower. The inventions and discoveries that humanity have made here have not occurred over there yet. And maybe that even corresponds to the date that Jesus was crucified, where the start of, 0 is altered, so that the date was 1986 over there. Could be. I imagine there's probably multiverse universes where dinosaurs still roam about and there was never a meteor that wiped them out. So who knows? If you go out far enough, you can find almost anything that is physically possible. So yeah, that could explain it. Or it's just a time reversal, a localized time reversal that reset itself. Either way though, that would be weird. Especially given that you interacted with things so deliberately, like the TV. So it's a bit beyond multiverse sight, if it was that. It was full-on multiverse corporeal interaction, which is another level that is very unusual, and it seems impossible to be that, because that would involve your entire physical body moving over, unless you just possess the body of the you over there in soul form. But even then, I'm trying to make sure everything fits in my theories, and if I'm talking about that, then I have to think about quantum immortality. If someone dies, I think if the transfer is far enough away, it takes time, and they have to go into a buffered universe, a dead pocket server. Even if it was just your soul, it should take enough time if it's a universe far enough away to be that different. Kind of just overwhelming myself here, so maybe it wasn't that. It probably was just some sort of time error. If reality is buffered, then the past is as concrete as the future, and maybe some way, for some reason, you were just transported in your conscious awareness of the buffered reality to a set-in-stone past. I could go with that. I think that is probably more plausible than multiverse travel. Okay, so let's file 1876. Red Sea Blaze and Alien Ways. Well, I would say that the blinding light out of nowhere does strike me as alien, because if it was some other nation's fighter jet pilot that was just there, and then just put on his high beams like you're driving down a road at night, that doesn't seem quite right, does it? No. But aliens, they often are known to have very bright lights that just emanate at random. And given the unease of your superiors in that moment, I would guess that whatever ship was detected was moving very fast, probably faster and in strange movements that defy to be physically allowable as far as we understand. Often alien ships are UFOs, let's say. We don't know if it's alien, but they're often reported to not conserve momentum. So they'll be going extremely fast and then instantly stop. And of course, if you did that if you could do that, we couldn't do that, but even if you could in a ship we have now, every single thing on that ship would experience insane G-forces, hundreds of G-forces. Every single person in there would be flattened into a pancake. The ship itself would destroy itself by stopping so suddenly. Or by curving so much. The angular momentum would just, it's like when you're in a car, you experience that when you're moving sideways. That's that's how we'd have gravity in space, the rotation effect. If you apply that to a ship that is going so fast and yet continues to go on, well, that would mean they have some sort of inertial dampener system. And that is beyond anything we understand, that we couldn't do that. That shouldn't be physically possible. I think that is concrete evidence that something else is going on. Just that. Even though we don't have clear evidence, like pictures and videos, we do have radar reports of objects moving erratically like that, in ways that is just not physically possible as far as we understand. So is that aliens? Is it something else? I don't know, but it's weird as hell, that's for sure. And it definitely seemed to spook your superiors. Question fra 1877. Birds and chills in seasonal thrills. I am not a father. I don't have kids yet. I do want to in the future. But I will say, just thinking about it, and I mean, I haven't experienced it yet, but just thinking about it, I think the worst thing that can happen to a person, to an adult, is to have a kid and have them die young. Just thinking about it makes me want to tear up. It's so brutal, and I'm so sorry for your loss. And was it the echo, a fragment of your daughter that lingered behind and just wanted to play with the decoration she so loves? Yeah, maybe. I could see that. And I hope it's that. For your sake. But again, I think it's just a fragment. I think that's the only way for quantum immortality to make sense, where if you die, you go to a different universe, your soul does, but then there are ghosts and spirits lingering behind. So how do you explain that? Well, the only way I can think of is that a tiny piece of who you were remains behind, just like an imprint. You press down on the bed and there's an imprint of yourself there. But over time, the imprint fades. And I think that's what's happening. That's why you don't have, billions of ghosts lingering behind. Because eventually that little fragment does dissipate. Now, maybe there are mechanisms for where the fragment can harness energy from us, something like that. I don't know. That's kind of fun speculation, but I'm not sure. That is what I would guess is going on. It was a small fragment of your daughter. May she rest in peace in this universe and continue living strongly in all the other ones. But I love that because at least it gives some sort of, not even closure, just peace for you. And you definitely deserve it. Let's lighten the mood now with the joke of the day. What do you call a shoe made out of a banana? A slipper. Extremely slippery. Don't recommend. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.